No,
No. I was just looking at what message.
let me get this plugged in so that we're actually, you guys can actually see something. Debugging, which is pretty important in a lot of ways because you guys have no doubt been experiencing a lot of different errors when you've been running your Python files, right? So we kind of want to have maybe a different way that we can figure out where those errors are coming from or what the values of different things are. Because most of the time when you get errors, why are we getting errors? What do you think that those are coming from? I mean, generally they're always our fault, right? But what's causing that?
Rejected.
What's that?
Something reject you, and you mistype in something. This could
Okay,
be,
yeah, it could be a typo,
yeah.
definitely. What other kinds of things could cause a bug or something to not function the way you expect?
If the files aren't in the right folders.
Yeah.
Okay.
The templates aren't in the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so just in a more general term, I usually like to think about with the types of errors that we're creating are errors of assumption. So we're assuming that something is a particular value or that maybe a file is where we thought it was and it really wasn't.
Are you guys in lecture record?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
No worries. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of find a way that we can inspect our running code to make sure that all the values are exactly as what we expect. All right. So the first step of this process in VS Code, because this is specifically going to be for VS Code, is we're going to open up this menu. And if you're on a Mac, it would be Command-Shift-P.
Shift what?
P. Command-Shift-P. And then you're going to type in Python, and you're going to want to select your interpreter. Okay? So here I've got some different versions of Python on here, but I'm going to go ahead and use this guy, 374. Why do I have so many versions here? And they all seem to be the same. Shims. All right, let's just go like this. Okay, cool. So now what I want to do is, before we've had this single kind of virtual environment that we're referencing with every one of our assignments, so instead I'm actually going to put an environment inside this specific project. All right, and that way I can install Flask directly right here, and it seems that my squigglies have gone away. I wasn't quite expecting that to happen. Yeah, makes me kind of sad actually. All right, hang on one second. Let me just remove this folder here. VS Code. Whoops, I think I just did myself in. Okay, so one more time, just going to select the interpreter. And then when you select that interpreter, you'll notice that it will create this little .VS Code folder for us. And this will have some settings for this particular application. So if I go in here inside settings, so it's just saying this is the Python path. So this is the version that I want to use, right? Okay. Now I can create my virtual environment like we've been doing. So I can say Python 3 -m venv env. So I'll just call it environment. And then VS Code saying here, we noticed a new virtual environment has been created. Do you want to select it for the workspace folder? So yes, I do, right? Okay, now let's see what's happening here inside of our server.py. Now we've got our squigglies back because our virtual environment doesn't have Flask installed in it yet, right? Okay. Now check this out. So right now I've got my terminal open, but I don't have my virtual environment activated, right? Okay. If I trash this terminal window and I just open my terminal again, watch what happens. My virtual environment was automatically activated because we told VS Code, yes, we want to use this local environment for this project, right? So that's kind of nice.
I want that.
You can do it. So now that we have this thing activated, I can just pip install Flask like we do normally, right? Cool. Now, what happened? All right, so now VS Code is actually recognizing, hey, you have Flask available in this project. So that's kind of cool. All right. So the environment is activating. We're all good to go. The only other step that we really need to do is we need to start the server, but using debugging. So that way we'll be able to actually stop things and inspect them at any given time. And you see this little bug over here. So that's what we're gonna use, right? So in here, once you click on the bug, there's going to be this little settings gear that you can click on. Oops. Why does this think that I'm doing C#? Hang on one second here.
Oh, the output is that C#?
What's that?
Is that the drop down right above? In the same section.
Oh, this little guy over here?
Bottom right. Where your output is. There's like a drop down that says C#.
What just happened there?
That was weird. Maybe it was accidentally toggled.
Jesus. Can I even get out of this menu? Oh, there we go. Okay.
That was weird.
Yeah, that was super strange. So let's see if we can. Oh, God. Let me click that gear one more time. Debug. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that we want to debug a Flask application, right? Okay, and then we should be able to click play on that to start debugging it. Why is it trying to import app?
Does it have the little thing at the bottom where it says if name equals name?
It's the same file.
Hang on one second. Let me just get out of that for a second. Okay, so we've got our environment activated. Where are we trying to import app? Does anyone see that? Because if I run it normally, this is all working fine, right? Okay, so let's see, add configuration, Python. Oops, Jesus, what did I just do? So if we're inside the current server file here and we try to debug a Flask application,
Does it matter that you're in the launch.json tab?
well, I keep closing that so I can go back to my server.py, but it should be all right. I'm gonna try to reopen this folder because something is acting kind of wonky here. All right. Okay, cool. So let's let me just drop that there. New terminal window. Okay, cool. We're still getting our activated environment there. So if I open up debugging here, add configuration. I already have that, right? Does it say Flask inside here? Yes, it does. Okay. So here's the problem. And I don't know why it didn't ask us this, but notice how it's saying the Flask app is app.py, but ours isn't called that, right? Ours is called what? Server.py. So we need to change this configuration. When I tested this before, though, it asked me ahead of time. It was something like, do you want to use app.py as your main application entry point? It didn't ask me that this time for some reason. So we want to change that right there.
So you just debug the debugging.
See what you did there. I like it. All right. Cool. So let's go back here and let's try to debug this. Boom. All right. So now we're running on port 5000 right there. So let's just make sure this is working. Go over here. Yeah, connect 4, right? Okay. So our app's working exactly as we expect it to. Now what we can do, what makes this kind of neat, is that what if we hit a route, for instance, like this index route, and I was passing in some users to my template or whatever, but something didn't look right. When I rendered the template, it's like, wait a minute, I thought that the user was supposed to have this thing in its dictionary, whatever, it doesn't. Whatever. Like, whatever the reason is, we think the data is one thing, but it's another. We can do this thing called setting breakpoints in our code. So here, if I want to set a breakpoint underneath here where I've established this little list of users, right? I can go over to the left of that line and click on it there, and then once I save the file, why is that an unverified breakpoint? If I hit a breakpoint, it will put it in a different location. Sometimes things just don't make sense. But the point is that so if I hit this route on the front end, in our code, what it's going to do is it's going to pause here and allow me to basically inspect what are all the variables at this point in time. Okay. So I'll save that there, and then let's just refresh on the front end. Oops. I'm going to click there. I'm trying to refresh. Okay, so it is refreshing, but notice that I haven't yet gotten a response. See how I got that X there? So it's just kind of like the browser's hanging there waiting. Send me a response, please. So if I go back in here, what I should be able to do, it's telling me that I'm actually at this particular location, right? So if I step into that, now we can see that I've got this new variable that I just established, right? And I can actually look at it. I can kind of inspect it. I can drop it down like that, and you can see that I've got these 2 dictionaries inside the list, right? I can even open up each of those dictionaries and look at all the different properties that are in there. So that's pretty cool. These are the local variables. If you set a breakpoint outside here, like in the actual main part of the application code, you should be able to see some other things too. So here, if I set one right there, why did it put it up there?
Maybe it only does breakpoints on the
When you have actual code,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna put some dummy variable or whatever, some variable. Because I actually wanted us to see what the app looked like, right? Okay, so let me get rid of that one. Put that one there. Save it. There we go. Okay. So let me just stop this real quick and then restart our debugging. Okay, so now we've actually stopped earlier in the app code, right? We haven't even gotten to a point where a user could hit any of our routes. We're right here. Okay, so now I can inspect everything that's available to us. So we can even look at the Flask class itself if you wanted to do that. You could see all of the sub-properties that we have here. So like the request class, the response class, that's kind of nifty. What else can we inspect? We can also inspect the app itself. So it's telling us here that our app is an instance of Flask server, right? And we've got all this information about it. Debug is false. So for some reason it's turned debug mode off, but we are still debugging, right? You can see down here we've got some information about the session cookie name. We'll be talking about session on Monday, so that's not something that we've covered yet, but it will definitely come up. Is there anything else you guys would like to sort of inspect with this or just see what you can do with the debugging? So this way we don't need to print things in the code itself. We can just set a breakpoint, and then when our code hits that breakpoint, we just go and look at it. Right?
So it'd be a good use for anytime you were considering putting like a print, you could just use a break instead.
You just use a breakpoint, yeah. And it would give you maybe a more global view of your application, whereas a print is just going to show us that one thing that we wanted to see. If I've paused my code, I could potentially look at anything in it. You know, if it happened that the thing that I printed wasn't the problem, but that maybe the problem was somewhere else, then I'd be able to potentially find it by just opening up some of those other variables. Right? Any questions about this? Or why it might be helpful?
When would you use the watch box and the cost stack?
Well, you could probably put a variable on watch. Let's see, expression to watch. What do I want to watch? App. Okay. So I haven't actually messed with that, but I presume what that would do is it would let you know if something about that app has changed. So maybe if I were to, so later on when we do sessions, we're going to establish a secret key. So if I said secret key, some really secret key. Yeah. Okay, so then right now we're up here. Let's just step over. Step into, whoops. Did anything happen here? Secret key still nothing? Hang on one sec, let me just rerun it one more time. Okay, so there's the Flask server now. Our secret key is none, right? Because we're not actually, it hasn't been set yet, right? So once we pass over it, that should change. So there's the app.secret key, step over that, and then you see it just changed right in there. Cool. So that's pretty cool. So again, like this is not critical that you guys use this, but it's just kind of an extra tool that's nice to have. You know, if you're thinking that something has a particular value, but you find out, oh, maybe it doesn't. And this is a good way that you can kind of check anything in the application at pretty much any time. All right, that's it. I'm going to stop the video. It's kind of like anticlimactic.